Morning, fun doing everyone. How are you all doing? Hope you're having a good day. We're having a kind of a sunny day here today, so that was nice, but very cold. It was almost icy this morning. So, how much faith do you have today? And what is it that you are needing to trust the Lord for today? And how much faith does it take to see the Lord answer that prayer? Faith is a funny thing. We're going to look at a story today, Matthew chapter 17. It involves a lot of different people and a lot of people in different places in their faith. And to be honest, it's in the one hand, it's seemingly one of the most uh, confusing, difficult passages to understand. I was even reading John Piper, a favorite theologian of mine, uh, his take on this, and he says this is the one passage that really he finds hard to understand exactly. And the reason is, well, I'm going to show you the reason. So let's get into the story. I'm going to show you um why this is challenging. Matthew 17. It starts with a story of a parent whose child, in essence, kind of had been very sick, very ill, and nobody had been able to help him. And he comes to Jesus looking for help, and that on the surface is a good thing. And when they came to the crowd, a man approaching Jesus, a man approached Jesus and knelt before him. Now, in this crowd were a lot of teachers of the law of the day. There had been a lot of arguing about what did the Bible really mean and teach and say going on. And out of this comes his father. Lord, have mercy on my son, he said. He has seizures and is suffering greatly. He often falls into the fire or into the water. And I brought him to your disciples, but they could not heal him. What we don't get in Matthew 17 that we find in Mark chapter 9, I think it is, the same story, is this man says, if you can do anything, would you please heal him? So Jesus' response is this, you unbelieving and perverse generation. Wow, what what a response to a man whose heart is so broken for his own son. Who is Jesus saying this to? You unbelieving and perverse generation. That is the first question that kind of can baffle people about what is going on in this passage. But hold on to that, especially this, you unbelieving. Okay, so we have unbelieving people. And Jesus replied, how long shall I stay with you? And how long shall I put up with you? Bring the boy here to me. And Jesus rebuked the demon, and it came out of the boy, and he was healed at the moment. Hooray! Everybody's happy. Then the disciples came to Jesus in private and said, remember how he said we couldn't drive him out? How come? Why couldn't we drive him out? And he replied, because you have so little faith. So you went from unbelieving, up here in verse 17, to disciples who had little faith. And he says, truly, I say to you, if you have faith as small as a mustard seed, you can say to this mountain, move from here to there, and it will move. Now, Jesus is not talking literally. Nobody has ever literally moved a mountain from one place to another. He's using hyperbole to make a point about the importance of faith in our prayer when we come to the Lord. But if you have faith as small as a mustard seed, nothing will be impossible for you. So let me lay this out for you. First, you have unbelieving people. Then you have a father come to him who kind of believes, but doesn't really fully believe because he says, if you can. He doesn't say, like the centurion in another passage, I know you can. I know you can do this. Would you heal my son? This is a different guy. And it's if you can. He has doubts, even as he's coming to Jesus as a last resort. I've tried everything else. I'm going to try the Jesus thing. But he's not really believing. It's just a last resort thing for him. I believe by the way, when Jesus rebuked and said, you unbelieving and perverse generation, he was talking to the whole crowd and especially the teachers. of the law, the Jewish teachers of the law that were there, that should have understood these things and did not understand them. But here's the next confusing part. When the disciples asked him, how come we weren't able to? Basically, Jesus said, because you have little faith, what you actually need is little faith. Because he says, if you have faith as small as a mustard seed, that's small. That's a small little faith. So your problem is that you had little faith. What you actually needed was little faith. Do you see how that sounds odd and confusing? How are we going to unravel this? Well, we need to start at the end of the story in this case. And the end is if you have faith as small as a mustard seed, you can do great things in the name of the Lord. Great things can happen in the name of the Lord, even if you only have a small amount of faith in that. A faith that's not doubting. It might not be strong, but it's not necessarily disbelieving, actively disbelieving. We all struggle with doubts from time to time, but the earlier ones were people that actually didn't believe, but were exhibiting a kind of faith, we'll say. So if you have even a small faith in the right person, it's popular in our generation now to talk about being people of faith. People of all different religions, all kinds of beliefs say just have faith. No, the Bible never teaches that. What the Bible teaches is you have to have faith in the right person. And in this case, they should have had faith in Jesus and understanding who Jesus is. At this point in his ministry, Jesus had done enough, said enough, taught enough that the people should understand that this is God's Messiah, the promised one, and even understand that this is God himself. And God himself could heal this boy in this situation. So if they even had just a little bit of faith, they would have gotten there. So back up now. The problem with the disciples, according to Jesus, is that they had little faith, but we just established little faith is what they actually needed. What what is going on there? Let's come back to our passage, and we're going to take a little glimpse into Luke 17, because the disciples were out doing ministry because Jesus had sent them out. Luke 10 is when Jesus sends 72 disciples out. There's a lot there. We don't have time for it all. But they had gone out on ministry and they came back and reported into Jesus. And they said this, the 72 returned with joy and said, Lord, even the demons submit to us in your name. Okay, even the demons submit to us in your name. In other words, when they went out, they were actively dependent on the power that Jesus brought them to do their ministry. I believe problem number one up here with the disciples of little faith is they had forgotten that. Yes, they went out in the name of the Lord, but they were probably not trying to do the healing in the name of the Lord. They were just doing it, like they're just assuming. If I just say the right words, say this prayer, have the right formula, this will be the outcome. But at the end, in your name is something we do where we actively trust in the power and authority that Jesus has. So that was the first problem. The second problem, Jesus' reply to their joy was this: I saw Satan fall like lightning from heaven. In other words, the kingdom of God is winning over Satan. It might not look like it today, but he is. The kingdom of God is winning over the kingdom of Satan. I saw Satan fall like lightning from heaven. And I've given you authority to trample on snakes and scorpions and overcome all the power of the enemy, and nothing will harm you. However, do not rejoice that the spirits submit to you, but rejoice that your names are written in heaven. In other words, keep things in perspective and don't get proud. Don't rejoice that they're submitting to you because they're not submitting to you. They're submitting to me. This is a pride issue right here that we're talking about. And Jesus is warning them, when you go out, don't get caught in the trap of pride, but rejoice that your names are written in heaven. In other words, rejoice in the fact that you are in a place where you have to trust me. And I think that was what happened with the disciples, that twofold thing. They just went out and did it and assumed, and they became proud. And so they no longer were able to cast out the demons. And so the answer to little faith is it was the wrong kind of little faith. They needed the right kind of little faith, which is a faith that believes that Jesus can do it, and I am actively depending on him to do it. That's the mustard seed faith that can now move mountains on behalf of the Lord in the Lord's name. The perverse and unbelieving generation, well, that was the crowd around them. The crowd, including the teachers, people that should have understood who Jesus was and didn't quite get it yet and weren't putting their faith in him at all. So, no faith, wrong kind of little faith. What we actually need is the right kind of even little faith. And when that comes together, then we see the Lord do good things in our lives and in the lives of people around us. That's my word of encouragement for you and for me today. And Lord willing, I hope to see you all on Wednesday.